Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. For Elden Ring, let's look at the differences in the names of places and characters, comparing the Japanese katakana to the English. I play the game in Japanese, but I look at the wikis and stuff in English, and I have noticed some differences, so I thought it'd be interesting to point them out. I'll say something very important up front. This is not a guide. This is not me telling anyone how to pronounce anything. My personal stance on native English speakers pronouncing words from other languages or from made-up languages is to say it how you see it. I'm much more forgiving of native English speakers than a lot of people are, and that's because I understand the disadvantage that native English speakers begin with. It mostly comes down to their vowels having lots of different sounds. And furthermore, I'm not making this video to say that one is better than the other or one is more right than the other. Both are right, both the English and the Japanese. They're in the game, so they're canon for their respective versions. It's up to the individual to kind of choose, if they're aware of both, which one they like better. But I like to look at things from the point of view of the translator or the localizer, thinking about like why they made some changes. Maybe they were thinking that the changes that they made would make it easier for their target audience. And finally, if I don't mention a character or place name, it's because the katakana Japanese is very close to the English in the final product, or the Japanese name is in kanji. Maybe later I will do a video talking about differences in names regarding the kanji, but that would be some work, so probably not going to make that one. Okay, first let's talk about the dragons. They have some cool names. There is Fortisax, who's down in the deep root depths. Oddly, in the English there's an additional syllable. In the Japanese it's just Forsax, but the English adds a T in the middle, Fortisax. I personally like the addition. I think longer, more complex names are cool. Alright, and then we have the rot dragon, Exyx. This is a case where just looking at the word might not exactly kind of explain how it is pronounced. I've seen some people even refuse to say it because they don't know how to say it, but yeah, Exyx, Exyx. Alright, and then we have Landsax. I believe this is the one in Altus Plateau. According to the katakana, the E in there at the end is silent, so it's just Landsax. I have seen some folks pronouncing the E separately, so it's like Landsiax, but E, A together as a compound vowel, or diphthong, love that word, has a very long history with many changes, and none of them are separate like E-A, so that one I can say is definitely wrong. Think of like the words break, or see, or dead. None of them separate the E and A sounds. And in this case, the E is silent, according to the Japanese. If you want to pronounce the E, go for it. Okay, then we have the final dragon boss, Placidosix. Here, the big thing about the name is the C. I think most English speakers pronounce it soft, so it ends up like Placidosax. But in the Japanese, it's a hard C, like a K sound. So, in the Japanese, it's more like Placidosix. Here, the kind of the aim of the localizers is a little mysterious, but if they wanted to maybe add an H after the C, that would make it look more like a hard sound. Or maybe they just made the decision to make it a soft C sound. Okay, here let's talk about a couple of bosses, Niall and O'Neill. O'Neill is pretty straightforward, that's like Tatum O'Neill from Paper Moon. But Niall, I think most people are pronouncing it like Nile, with like a long I. But the katakana does say a short I, ni, so Niall. This is another case where the two vowels together are pronounced separately. I personally think Niall is a weird name. Sorry if your name is Niall. Nile sounds perfectly fine to me. Okay, here let's talk about some NPCs. First is Topes. The TH, as done by the katakana, is just a straight T sound, but with the, I guess, a silent H. I hear this sometimes in Jamaican English. They may say like Ethiopians as Ethiopians. Also, the O is a long one, so it's more like topes rather than tops. Okay, next let's talk about Renala, Rani, Marika, and Melina. I group all of these together because they share a few things in common. The choice between R's and L's, taken the Japanese to the English, and the choices involving stressed consonants and extended vowels. Coming from the Japanese katakana and going into the English, the da-di-du-de-ro sounds can be changed into either the English R or L. Like Renala could have easily been translated into Lenara, or Renara, or Lenala. Rani could have been Lani, Marika could have been Malika, Melina could have been Marina. I pretty much agree with the choices the English localizers made here. Maybe more interesting is what is not here, and that's stressed consonants or extended vowels. Those in the Japanese katakana are represented with hyphen-looking characters, but there are none of them in these names. So it's not Renala, it's the flatter Renala. It's not Rani, it's the shorter Rani. It's not Marika, it's the flatter Marika. It's not Melina, it's the flatter Melina. Alright, then we have Kenneth Haidt. Haidt could be pronounced as Haight. There's like Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, but here it is like Haidt, and thankfully the character says it himself, so that helps. Then there is Pidia. In the Japanese it's pronounced Pidi, which I guess is maybe too close to pity, so maybe the localizers added an A to the end to draw more distinction there. And then there's Nefeli-Lu, just a very fancy spelling way to say Nefeli-Lu. And then there is Haita, one of the creepiest characters in my opinion. Unlike Melina and the others that I mentioned before, she does have a hyphen in her name, so that adds the stress to the center E, making it higher and extended, and it's a long E as well, Haita. Blythe, the last sound is like a V sound. Then there is Latina. The E sound here is like E in Japanese, so it does end up sounding like Latina. Maybe that sounded too close to Latina, so they changed it, made the E go from long to short. Now it's Latina. Alright, next let's talk about some place names. Two of the rises kind of have interesting changes. On the, Starlight Plateau or something, there's the Chelona Rise. In the Japanese it's pronounced something like Hierona. The C totally disappears. And then there is the Oritis Rise. In the Japanese it's pronounced Oritis Rise. Interesting change there. Oritis. And then there's Liurnia of the Lakes. In the Japanese it's pronounced Liania. I can see a lot of problems trying to present Liania in English to make it pronounceable to native English speakers. If you wrote it out literally, it would look like this, which I could easily imagine people saying as like liney or linei or something. In English, some vowel combinations become one sound and others remain separate. And IE, I think, always becomes one vowel sound, so I agree with changing IE in both cases to vowel combinations that we English speakers recognize as separate, like IU and IA. Liurnia versus Liania. Then there's Altus Plateau. This is a very simple name change. It is the Alta Plateau in Japanese, Altus Plateau in English. I don't have a preference either way, both sound good. But oddly, the flowers that grow in Alta Plateau are called Altus flowers, even in the Japanese version. I don't know what's going on there. Then there is Mount Gelmir. In the Japanese, it's Mount Gelmia. Mount Gelmia. I don't know, maybe Gelmir sounds more masculine, less pretty, to maybe fit kind of the grim state of the mountain. I don't know. And then we have Fort Lyde, kind of a mess of vowels in the English. So in cases like this, the phonetic Japanese katakana can help us out. Lyde, Fort Lyde. And then there is the Yellow Annex, just another funny spelling, kind of like Nefeli-Lu. Alright, and then we can end with some dungeon names. First is a Stormvale. No difference here, actually. But it's just interesting to note that while the surrounding areas and structures use the kanji for storm, the castle just uses the phonetic katakana. I guess it makes sense from the Japanese point of view. A castle that looks like this should have a Western-sounding name. And yet, some castles in the game have kanji names. And then for Raya Lucaria, the Magic Academy, minor change here. It could be like Leia Lucaria or Rhea Lucaria. Maybe Raya sounds more mystical. I don't know. I don't have preference either way. And then there's the capital Lanedale. This is a pretty big change. In the Japanese, it's like Rodil. I personally prefer Lanedale. It sounds more kind of regal and sophisticated to me. Alright, and then final place name will be Eberfell. This is quite different from the Katakana Japanese, and it's kind of the opposite of the situation of Fortisax, where the English adds a consonant, but here, with the brace of the Haligtree, it takes a consonant away. Eberfell versus Elfale or something. I guess I like Eberfell more because, again, longer, more complicated names seem cooler. Okay, those were the differences that I noticed in the naming in Elden Ring. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.